Good day, good day, and welcome to another broadcast of Global Capital Inc. Today, this program comes to you with a kind compliments of 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of the USA. It comes to you with the compliments of 10X Blueprint Academy and nonetheless, Global Capital Inc. Today, I want to embark on the second part of this series discussion. And I want us to talk about branding and value propositioning. And the topic today that I'm going to be looking at specifically is the blueprint for branding and value proposition. The blueprint for branding and the value proposition. Again, I'm going to be reading from my book, 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint, The Psychology of Doing Business. To understand how to design or build your business value proposition blueprint should begin with an understanding of your target market. And again, here is where you always ask yourself, which comes first? Producing the value proposition or doing the research to gather information about your target market, and then you use that information to design or build out your value proposition. In this case, we at Global Capital Inc., 10X Branding and Marketing LLC, the 10X Blueprint Academy, we strongly recommend that you take the time to understand your target market before building out your value proposition, and hence this statement. To understand how to design and build your business value proposition blueprint should begin with an understanding of your target market. In this case, you want to understand what are the needs and wants and expectations of your target market. What are the dreams and hopes and aspirations of your target market? It is only after you would have had a clear understanding of the needs, wants, and expectations and dreams, hopes, and aspirations of your target market, you should then attempt to then build out the value proposition. But there's so much more that I want to say on this subject matter. The VPBP, which is the value proposition blueprint, must strive to achieve three strategic business objectives. One, it must identify the market problem or a need. It must identify a problem or a need. Two, it must identify the solution to that problem. And three, it must identify the target market willingness to pay for the product or service that you're going to be offering. So we're saying here again, in designing this blueprint, the blueprint must represent, the value proposition blueprint must represent one, a problem or need that exists in the market. Two, you must identify the solution. And three, that entire process must be able to cash flow. While the cash flow element is silent in the value proposition, of course, this is one of the main reasons why you are in business. It is important for you to take these concepts. Now, let me just do a little deep dive into this subject matter. In designing your value proposition, it's important that you take the time to understand what is the problem and what is the need. And as you identify what is the problem and what is the need, you then is challenged to come up with the solution to that problem. But again, the third element of it, as you implement the solutions for your clientele base, you want to ensure that is being done in a manner that is profitable to the organization. So that in itself represents two things at a deeper level. It represents one, the brand intention value trait, which is to add value and fix problems. And it also represents two, the brand expectations value trait. And the expectation has everything to do with the cash flowing potential of the organization, the growth potential of the organization, and so much more. As you come deeper into these programs that we're going to be providing you, you will get a much clearer understanding of what we are saying. But let's take, for example, you're targeting the business community. Are you taking the time to understand what are some of those challenges that the business community is or are going through? Let's take, for example, access to capital. There are small, medium, and in many cases, large-scale businesses that are looking for capital to grow, diversify, and scale their business. And depending on which part of the world you are, particularly so in developing economy, they might be saddled with what is known as debt capital. Debt capital that monopolize the market, debt capital, because of that monopoly, capital come at high interest rates, and it leaves the entrepreneur with no choice but to leverage debt capital, which by extension puts him in a not so advantageous position when it comes to producing and exporting and integrating products and services across the world, particularly so in countries that are able to access capital at lower interest rates, perhaps access labor at lower cost, and access energy also perhaps at lower cost. It's hard for those businesses to compete at that level. So in building out your brand value proposition to speak to this specific target market, it's important for you to take the time out to understand what is the problem and what are their needs. So some of the needs that they might have is the need for equity capital. Because equity capital provides a different window or a different access point to capital. Here is where you're able to leverage equity in your estate, equity in your business for access to the much needed capital to grow your business. Now, accessing equity as against debt is different if you take the time to understand this entire parameters, because accessing debt, it simply means that you have amortized, collateralized monthly debt obligation. What that simply means is that once you take that debt, every month you have a debt obligation to honor. It's different with the equity platform, because with the equity platform, you may not have monthly debt obligation. You may have annual debt obligation. And that annual debt obligation is also subjective to the cash flowing potential of the business. So I'm not here to discuss financial intelligence and financial leadership. The objective here is to just point out that, is there a problem and what is the solution? And can you cash flow that solution for it to make business sense as you build out your value proposition? So this is saying clear that the business community has a need for capital at competitive interest rates, capital that is easily accessible, and your value proposition might be able to speak to that. Another example of the solution can be credit capital. Now, credit capital comes with monthly debt obligation, but credit capital may also come with 0% APR, annual percentage risk. Along with this, understanding this platform may give you a capital advantage, because accessing credit capital at 0% APR for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, it can give you a major competitive advantage. because of the fact that for that period of time, once you understand the system properly and you can leverage the system properly, it simply means that you will not have to pay interest on the capital that you are leveraging to scale up, to diversify, to grow your business, your brand, your idea. So the solution is understanding credit capital. The solution is perhaps you building out a business model that speaks to this entire platform of credit capital. And of course, as you talk about credit capital, you may be talking about personal credit, and you must be talking about business credit. Now, personal credit, just to give you some more example of the solution, is where you will leverage it in the developed world, your SSN, Social Security number, to access the credit. At a business level, you're either leveraging your EIN or the attain to access credit. That's a process. At the right time, we will go into all of that with you, says to ensure that you understand some of these solutions. Perhaps we might be helping you to develop your business model to deal with capital market and to deal with some of the problems and needs that exist in the particular market. Another solution could be smart capital. And of course, there are differences with all of these markets: debt capital, equity capital, credit capital, and smart capital. And building out your value proposition around this area, perhaps it could be a smart business decision because of the high volume of businesses that are around the world that are constantly looking for startup capital, growth capital, and so much more to really move their business to another level. So there's where you had the solution, you had you had the problem, you had the solution. The important thing here is to really understand if you can cash for this process, because as we are saying in this blueprint for branding and the value proposition, we are saying that the VPB, which is the value proposition blueprint, must do three things. It must identify a problem and a need. It must identify the solution, and it must clearly identify the willingness of the target market to pay for that service or product that you're going to be providing. That's our way of designing this entire system of branding and building out the value proposition. The cash flowing part is silent, but of course, I would have said before that one of the primary objectives in you being in business is not only to add value and fix problems, but the key is to cash flow maximize. So when you talk about giving value for money, you're talking about the latter part, which is to ensure that the target market is willing to pay for the particular services that you will be providing. So it's important to really dig in deep to understand what are some of the key elements that you need to understand before developing your value proposition. Now, you can only arrive with this information by doing market research. And that brings us to another area. And permit me to read an extract from my book, 10X Branding and Marketing and Blueprint. This process entails conducting market research that enables the brand manager to identify the specific target market, lifestyle, culture, and social class. All right. To get all of this information, to understand where businesses are at, to understand their need for capital, to understand their need to be able to mitigate debt, to understand their need to access market, you can only arrive at this when you do the market research. And it's by doing the market research you're informed, and it's from this information you should now build out your value proposition to speak directly after those needs and wants and expectations and those dreams and hopes and aspirations, or the particular business lifestyle, business culture, and as it sets out to achieve its social class needs. Now, let me dig a little deeper into the social class issue. As you set out to develop your value proposition in your business branding, you want to be certain, and I'm going to emphasize this, that you are identifying a problem or a need that is specific to a target group. Along with identifying the problem or the need, you want to ensure that you have enough skin in the game to have emerged at a point where you identify the solution to the problems or the needs. You're either adding value or you're fixing problems. The next step, you want to be certain that you are doing all of this in a market-sensitive and market-oriented manner. Because at the end of the day, you want to be certain that your target market can pay for the services that you are providing. This might seem trivial to a lot of persons, but I want to assure you it's not. Because I'm seeing in many cases, as we interface with clients across the world, we are seeing that very often you identify a problem, you identify a need, you identify the solution, but what you fail to identify is if the specific target market has the disposable income to pay for the quality of service that you are providing. And this happened in some practical cases when we talk to clients and clients say that we are targeted everyone with our brand. And I would say to you, no, it's impossible to target everyone with your brand, because you might be producing Mercedes-Benz. Everyone definitely can purchase a Mercedes-Benz. And if you decide to do a goodwill humanitarian service and give everyone a Mercedes-Benz, when there's need for parts, there are certain demographics certainly would not be able to replenish those parts. So you're losing the sale and you're losing the after sales, where they're going to be need for, for parts for that vehicle as it goes through that wear and tear process. So you lose both ways. That is not the objective of filling out the value proposition. And that, by extension, that emphasizes the importance of doing the research to really understand the social class. Here is where you need to take the time to understand your target market based on the economic determinants of demand. It is based on understanding the economic determinants of demands, understanding culture and lifestyle. You're better able to design your value proposition to achieve the three objectives, strategic objective that we have talked about. It must fix the problem. It must speak to a problem or a need. It must provide the solution, and it must cash flow. And you can only arrive at this position of strength when you do the market research. So market research is very, very important as you set yourself up to move a process, that process of branding and that process of building up your value proposition. Let me read another extract. This data, once you do that research, this data can best be used to produce products and services that are aligned to the lifestyle, culture, and social class needs of the specific target audience, So what I'm saying here is clear in my book, 10X Branding and Marketing Blueprint. As you do the research, as you gather the intelligence about the specific target market, needs, wants, and expectations, dreams, hopes, and aspirations, lifestyle, culture, and social class. As you gather this kind of information, the next steps, you build the value proposition based on this information. And by extension, you conduct every affair of the organization, of the business, of the firm to live up to those expectations and perhaps exceed those expectations as you set the stage to achieve larger than life impact with your specific target market. You do this, and this is laying that foundation to 10x your business, your brand, your idea. And I'm going to give you some simple tips just now as to things that you can do to 10x your business, your brand, your ideas. Now, I'm going to read the last paragraph here. And I want to say this. Building the blueprint for branding and the value proposition as proposed in my book, 10x Branding and Marketing Blueprint, also suggests that every department of the business or the firm must conform to a uniquely established branding and marketing custom and systemization process. Now, I want you to take time to unlock and unravel what I'm saying here. Every department within your organization must be subject to some form of branding that allows you to easily and effectively communicate the value proposition to the specific target market, to your workforce, to the public. That is what's going to allow you to make impact on the bottom line, the cash flowing potential of the organization. We are also saying that the effort to build out or ensure that every department represents the value proposition, there should be a uniquely established branding and marketing customs. Meaning that you mustn't just wake up today and say, this is what we're going to do, and wake up tomorrow, and this is what you're going to do. There must be clearly unique, established culture and customs that are properly systemized within the organization. And many of you heard me talk about systemization before. When I talk about systemization, we are talking about there must be transparency in your value proposition. There must be consistency with your value proposition. There must be accountability throughout the organization with your value proposition. There must be scalability with your value proposition. There must be traceability and transferability with your value proposition. A quick example of transferability, you might be doing this at one location, but you want to up-level it and you want to open multiple branches. This systemization process becomes relevant when you're thinking about building out your brand into local, regional, and international trade. So I trust that this blueprint, this very short podcast on the blueprint for branding and the value proposition was helpful. All right, and just permit me to do a little branding and marketing gymnastics. It always happens. You know, sometimes it appears to be easy, it's not so easy. I could recall many years ago as I was lecturing the diploma program in marketing, one of my students asked, which comes before? Does the branding comes before the marketing, or the marketing comes before the branding? The clever way of answering this question is to first of all point out the depths of marketing. But as you explain the depths of marketing, it's important to show where it begins and where it ends. And a quick example. To do any form of branding or to build out the brand or to build out the value proposition, it should be based on information. It should be based on knowledge. You should put yourself in a position of strength where you have the informed data that informs what your value proposition is saying. Now, to arrive at this point to be informed about what your value proposition is saying, market research has to be done. And market research is an element of marketing. So technically, conducting the market research informs the branding process. It informs the branding process. But of course, the branding process represents a number of subject matter experts. You have the graphic designers, you have the advertising copywriter, you have the cultural anthropologists, you even may have the psychologists in this team who understand people, the business psychologists, who are taking the time to build out a particular brand, a particular product to appeal to specific needs, specific cultural expectations. So you have a pool of people here, and these are the people that will invest the time, talent, and resources to ensure that you're building out a brand that can be on point in living up to the specific target market, lifestyle, culture, and social class, needs, wants, and expectations, dreams, hopes, and aspirations. Now, once they would have done this, everything after this falls into the hands of marketing. All right? Everything after this point falls into the hands of marketing. And here's where we talk about the brand visibility, the brand reach, the brand impact, the brand conversion, how to build confidence, trust, and credibility in the brand. Now, many of you, again, I see this happen with a lot of entrepreneurs. Sometimes increasing your clientele base is not the easiest thing to achieve. And permit me to tell a little story here. I can recall about 15, 20 years ago, I was very much aggressive in marketing at that time, managing an advertising agency and so much more. And there's a colleague that I know would come around, extremely talented when it comes to IT. But guess what? That individual was going through tremendous financial hardship. And to my mind, there really wasn't any, logical reason for him to be going through that. Why? Because he was extremely talented. Here is where he had a brand. He's extremely talented in IT. He can assemble and disassemble your computer. He can build the website. He can do social media marketing. But guess what? He understands all of this. But understanding how to bring visibility, reach, and impact, conversion is where his skill set had some limitation. One of the easy things that I recommended, or one of the things that I recommended that he should do, is to package his stuff and identify 10 persons per day, per week, per month, and just give your service away free. In most cases, free is not free. All you're doing, you're positioning your brand out there. And for a period of time, you just attract, you appeal to your specific target market. And one way in getting new clientele to break down the element of resisting your brand is by offering something free. And of course, the element of resistance is going to be normal. It's a normal part of doing any business, because you have not yet established confidence. You have not yet established, trust. You have not yet established credibility in the mind of your specific target market. And that again too is obvious why you have not been able to do that, regardless of the fact that you might have been in business for many years. Because the cost associated with building up brand confidence, building up brand trust, and building up brand credibility is very capital intensive. And here is where we see many good entrepreneurs, many good business leaders who wants to do good in the world. They're stuck with an excellent brand and never being able to bring that brand to visibility, reach, impact, conversion, confidence, trust, and credibility. I'm going to stop here for today. So I trust that you can take this tip if you are going through any challenge in business and you want to scale your clientele. You can exercise some marketing strategies. Identify 10 potential clients that you know has the capability to pay. All right, so let's go back at this. You know they may have a challenge or a need. You have the solution to that challenge or that need. And you know that they have the disposable income to pay for your services. Connect with them. Give away a number of your services free. Find 10 person and do it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. And watch your operation over the next 6 months to a year, where it's going to be. You will start to 10x. All right, my name is Gary Thompson. I'm a business development consultant by profession. I'm a humanitarian by nature, and I'm the multiple best-selling author for several books, including Manager's Toolkits, Billionaire Codes, and my most recent book is titled 10X Branding and Marketing, Blueprint, the Psychology of Doing Business. Be blessed and see you in the next broadcast.